All right, 3.2, working with exponents. When we're working with exponents, folks, we need to understand what powers are and the different parts of it. For example, powers are a convenient way to write repeated multiplication. For example, a to the power of m. So we have this a to the power of m. This whole thing, folks, is called a power. So let's go through all the definitions. The bottom piece, the a, is known as the base. The m is known as the exponent. The whole thing is known as the power. So this is the definition for each of the pieces, folks. A is the base, m is the exponent, and the whole thing, a to the m, is known as the power. All right, when we have this written down, a 3 with an exponent 4, a base of 3, an exponent 4, the power is known as 3 to the power of 4. Now we can read this as 3 to the power of 4, just like I've just said, or 3 to the 4th power, or we can write it as 3 to the 4th, or we can write it the 4th power of 3, or we can write it as 3 to the exponent 4. Any way that we read it, that is what expresses this particular power. Any of these ways. All right. Evaluating powers. What we're going to do here is evaluate certain powers. And we're going to write them in expanded form, and then we're going to evaluate them. So, for example, 2 to the power of 5. Negative 3 to the power of 3. Negative 4 to the power of 2. And this negative 4 to the power of 2. We're going to talk about this in just a minute. So the first one, 2 to the power of 5. You have to write this in expanded form. In expanded form, that means we write 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That is 2 written out 5 times because the exponent is 5. Now, what is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2? Expanded will be 32. All right, let's try the next one. This one says this exponent 3, the exponents are always affected by the brackets in front of it. So what's right before the 3 is a bracket. So everything inside this bracket gets the exponent 3. So we'll write it out as negative 3 times in brackets, just like that, because the bracket is multiplied 3 times. So there we go, 3 of them. So negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Hopefully you're all thinking, okay, that's going to be negative 27, and that is the value. What about the next one? Well, this exponent 2, what's right before it is the bracket, so the entire bracket gets doubled with negative 4. So negative 4 doubled. Now, negative 4 times negative 4 gives you positive 16. All right, now the last one, negative 4 all squared. What's right before the 2 is the 4, folks. Not a bracket, but just the 4. This negative does not get expanded out. So what we end up having is a negative on the outside and then 4 times 4, because only the 4 got doubled. So we have 4 times 4 with a negative in the front. And the value of that, folks, is going to be negative 16. So it's important to note that anything right before the exponent, for example a bracket, the whole thing inside the bracket is affected by the exponent. In this case, the exponent is the 2, and what's right before it is the 4. So only the 4 got only the 4 got the exponent. So then 4 to the power of 2 is 4 times 4, and the negative stayed out. All right, let's try a couple more. 0.5 to the power of 3, 2/3 to the power of 3, and negative 0.5 squared. So let's try these. Here we go. So 0.5 to the power of 3 is 0.5 times 0.5 times 0.5. And the answer to that is going to be 0.125. The next one, 2 to this exponent is affected by the bracket. What's inside the bracket? 2/3. So 2/3 multiplied by itself 3 times. 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3 gives you 8/27. No decimals, folks. Give it to me as a fraction. And the last one, this exponent 2 is affects only the 0.5 and not the negative. So you end up with negative 0.5 times 0.5. And 0.5 times 0.5 is 0.25, and a negative comes and stays outside. All right, let's try another example, folks. Powers sometimes appear in formulas. When evaluating expressions involving powers, follow the correct order of operations. For example, which container holds more popcorn, and how much more? Assume that each container is filled right to the top. So here's our first one, and it's a cube box with measurements of 9.2 centimeters. The other one is a cylinder, and the measurements of that has a height of 9 centimeters and a width of 10.4 centimeters. So which one of these two will hold more popcorn? Well, folks, what we need to do is calculate the volume. How do we calculate volume? Well, for a cube, it's just length times width times height, basically 9.2 cubed. The same number multiplied by itself, 3 to the power 3. Now that means when we plug 9.2 to the power 3 in your calculator, you get a volume of 778.688 centimeters cubed. Again, that's the units for the cube. Now, we need to find the volume of the cylinder. To find the volume of the cylinder, a cylinder, folks, is just a circle, such as this, that has been stretched out to create the cylinder. That's right, a circle that's been stretched out to create the cylinder. So we find the area of the circle and multiply it by the stretch, also here known as the height, you will be able to get the volume. So we need the area of this entire circle. The area of the circle is pi r squared, r being the radius. The diameter is 10.4, so the radius, folks, is 5.2. So volume is pi r squared times the height. The height is 9 centimeters. So one more time, this is the volume, pi r squared h, and we're going to replace h with the height, which is the stretch, 9.0 centimeters. And then the radius is not 10.4, folks. The radius is going to be 5.2. So we put in 5.2. And we use the pi button in our calculator to get our answer. And that is, we will have, the volume will be pi times 5.2 squared times 9. Again, 5.2 is the diameter divided by 2, which is, the diameter is 10.4. We divided that by 2 to give us 5.2. Now what we're going to do is take all these values and multiply them, and we get 764.5380. Now, folks, rounded to 4 decimal places. I know it didn't say here, but we always automatically round our decimal answer to the 4th decimal place. So we have 764.5380 centimeters cubed. So which of these two containers will hold more? That's right, the cube will. Okay, therefore the container in the shape of the cube will holds more popcorn. It holds 14.1500 centimeters cubed more. How do we get that? We take the answer to the cube and we subtract the answer to the cylinder. And just to recap as rounding, these are the numbers I got in my calculator. Notice that the 4th place is a 9. So we look at the next place, the 5th place, to tell us, are we going to go up or are we going to stay? And in this case, the 8 says, okay, that 9 has to go up to a 0, and this 7 goes up to an 8. So that's where the 5380 comes from, folks. And that's just simple rounding techniques, which you would have learned already a few years ago. All right, folks. Well, that's the end of the video for 3.2. Have a numerical day.